is rated GE. It is suitable for general family viewing.
Hello there and welcome to Beyond the Limit with me, Muthoni Maina. On set, I am joined by an amazing gentleman by the name of Owiti, and he will get to share more on matters of autism as he is a caregiver. So karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know I've done a brief introduction, but please do expound on your case.
All right. Thank you so much, Muthoni, for having me. And it's also a pleasure to be at TV 47. And I believe that our session today will be informative to the general society. My name's Duncan Owiti. I am a father of 3 boys, and my eldest son, who is called Miles Owiti, is autistic. He's currently 13 years old and is in a special school called Waidaka Special School. The journey with him took us through a lot of ups and downs. We had different experiences, but as a father and as a parent, you always want the best for your kids. So we've always done our best to be able to see that our kid has the best.
So you have stated that he's dealing with autism. So what were the first signs that you got to notice in your son and you were like, I think there's a miss somewhere?
Wow. It came to us as a shock because my son was born on 4th of April 2011. So the same night that we were discharged to go home, sorry about that. The following day we realized that the baby wasn't doing what the baby should be doing. He wasn't sucking as usual, and there was a lot of, he was actually having some discharge from the mouth. So we rushed back to the same hospital where we were, where he was delivered. And in that process, we were told, no, there's not so much we can be able to do because the child has an infection. They called it neonatal sepsis. So they recommended that we go and see a neurologist. So we went and we saw one, and immediately she saw our son. She told us the damage is a little bit critical, but she'll try to do everything possible. At that time, we were in Mombasa. We went and saw a doctor called Dr. Awimbo. So she quickly admitted us and started administering antibiotics. But you see, with the 1-day-old kid, there wasn't so much she could be able to do. She was just trying to salvage the situation. So first thing she told us, should you have had a good doctor by yesterday, you shouldn't have been discharged. So it was from day one that we knew this is going to be a challenge. So in the hospital, we stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. He didn't change as much because he wasn't sucking and he wasn't doing all the activities a child should be able to do. So he was put on a lot of fluids, and most of them were artificially being administered, not sucking. Yeah. So she sat us down and prepared us that your child has a challenge, and this challenge is something you are going to deal with all his life, but you have to take heart. At that time, the shock came and the finances were also shocked, because within a span of 2 weeks, we had already spent close to 700,000 in the hospital. So if by then I didn't even have a good job, I don't know what would have happened. And you can imagine the first day you've already cleared the maternity bills, and here again you are spending another 700,000. So that was the beginning of everything. So when 2 weeks after we were discharged from the hospital, he started having again convulsions. So when we went back, we were again taken into a ward. We spent another 1 month at Aga Khan in Mombasa. That cleared $1 million Kenyan shillings because the drugs are very expensive and the doctor's consultation fee was way too high. And every doctor, every specialist who came had a bill on us. So the first part of it was now a very thorough shock on our finances. We went from here to here. You deplete all your savings. Now you either have to rely on your insurance, and if it is not good enough, you have to dig into your pocket. And you have now to ask your friends to be able to support you. And that's when you start losing them. That's when they realize, when he calls you, you just know what is coming. Yeah. So we really had a shock, but thanks to our parents, especially my father and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, they really did stand with us and really gave us all the support we needed until our boy stabilized. But the truth of the matter is, within the first 5 years of having a special kid is also a special time. For a parent, you go through trauma. For the child, he doesn't know what to do. For the society, they don't know how to absorb it.
Yeah, they run away.
For the relatives, the bundle of joy has now become a problem. So they don't know how actually to look at you. So it was a very big challenge to us. At times, we would close ourselves in our own house, not to talk to anyone. At times, people would be inviting us to places, we would say no, because you know your child is going to be labeled. And they know that you have a child. So they expect you to come with your baby, and now you cannot go with your baby. So what do? You stay at home, just for your own peace. And then the neighbors, how are they going to look at you? I remember one thing which really struck my wife, and she's never forgotten that word up to date. We had a very strange neighbor. So she used to see us, she used to see the clothes of the baby being hanged out and everything. But you see, the child has a problem. So with autism, sometimes they have a challenge in communication. So my son, up to now 13, is nonverbal. So he wasn't making any sound. So this neighbor one day actually said it loudly. Hey, na huyu ni mtoto aina gani hata sauti atoi? You see, and you as a mother, you are there. You see, she went back into the house, closed herself, and started crying. So that was also another eye-opener to us. So when I came back from work, she told me all that, and I told her, listen, we are not going to fight her because of lack of her knowledge. Rather, we should now be much stronger than her and not take that as an insult to us, but as her ignorance. So a few days later, we were able to talk to her, but she never really bought the idea that there could be a problem with our child and things like that.
So in the midst of all that, how are you able to balance work and your family?
Thanks to God, my roles have not been the roles that keep you in the office. I'm a trained marketer, so by then I was doing sales and marketing, but later on I was promoted to a sales and marketing manager. So you realize that at that time you are not really closed in the office, and sometimes you don't have to be in the office 8 to 5. So I could always juggle about being able to be at home and also being able to attend to my child. But as a father, I had to put it in my heart that, listen, this is my son. Whatever happens, I have to be there for him, okay? And also, the other factor that really made me very strong is that I grew up without a father. So that gap was really strong in me. So I started asking myself a question. How will my son be without me? And now that he is special, how will the society look at him? Where will I find my son without me? So I said I'm gonna be there for my son at any given time that I needed to be there. From day one, I took him to school myself, and that was also another challenge.
Which we are getting there, because I want to understand the process of, taking him to special needs school and also with therapy in between. So how did that come about, and was it a very tough process for you?
I agree. That was very tough, but I thank God because the company I used to work for was really understanding. And due to the fact that my role wasn't tying me, And also thank God I had the grace to be able to perform. So with my role, if you're performing, no one will really be after you most of the time. Now, in my third year in the company here in Nairobi, I was given a company car. But then I also sat down with our director and I explained to her what I was handling. Having my fellow colleagues coming to my house was a challenge because I didn't know how they were going to take it. But thanks to God that my employer really had some good understanding with me. So I would ask for permission to be able to take my son to the hospital, and that would not be a problem. There was a time we were at Aga Khan for about 1 month, and I would be coming from work. Our offices used to be at Muthaiga. I would carry my clothes in the car. I would come from work, drive to the hospital, let my wife go home, sleep in the hospital. The following day I would brush there, change my clothes, and go to the office. And it was really a hard time. So at that time we met one therapist called Dr. Samia. Yeah. She's at Aga Khan. She looked at us because we had given up on doctors. The last time we were coming from Mombasa, we had a specialist we are going to see, and my son was having a lot of convulsions. The doctor told me, listen, you don't need to come with him. Just go and give him this medicine. If everything goes on fine, fine. If they don't work, it is fine. So technically, I saw this doctor had written off my son. But I said, no, I'm not going to give up. So when we came to Nairobi, the other thing which also used to affect my son a lot in Mombasa was the heat. So whenever there's a lot of heat, convulsions come. But Nairobi is cooler, so he didn't have much of a problem with the weather. So Dr. Samia sat us down and told us, listen, you need now to get out of your cocoon. You need now to have another baby, because now having another baby was now a problem. We were worried. What happens? What if we have another one?
With the same case. Absolutely. So let's hold that thought for a minute right there. Guys, it's time to take a very, very short break. We will be right back with more on this story. To keep it right here.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe. Welcome back to Beyond the Limit. Now, before we take a very short break, Owiti was telling us on the therapy journey that and how it started. So with Dr. Sami. So how was it, and how did you feel at first that the previous specialist that you were dealing with sort of wrote you guys off?
Yes, we felt really neglected, and I did not come from a family with parents, so most of the parental care will get from my wife's side. So we also had a problem going home frequently because the labeling at home was also a problem. So we just had to stick together and do everything here in Nairobi. So Dr. Samia met us, and at first we went through all the prerequisites and bookings and everything. So when we went to see her on the second time, my son had not yet walked, and yet he was 3. So he looked at us and he told us, I'm hopeful that things will work. When he walks, it's fine. If he doesn't walk, it's still gonna be fine. But don't give up on him. So he told us you need to continue with your life as usual. And I would really advise that to get another child, because that child will be a therapy to him. You as a parent, you cannot play with him. but a fellow kid will play with him and will be able to motivate a few things which you as a parent you cannot. And we realized that was true, because after that, we now allowed our relatives to come with their children. And we would see them at least trying to interact with him and him trying to follow them, just crawling and following them. So that really motivated us. So she recommended therapy. First of all was physical therapy for him to be able to walk. It took a bit of time, about 6 months before he was able to make his first step. And the therapies we were doing once in a week. And so I had to learn the therapy, go and make sure that my house girl understands the therapy, because you cannot do therapy once in a week and you expect a result very quick. But thanks to God, my house help was also very good. She was very understanding and she was very active. So she took it up upon herself and she would actually do it. So every time I was going for therapy, because I had a car, I would carry her with me. So she would see what happens to the baby. And so we would repeat the same at home until he walked. Over and above that, we also had to go through therapy ourselves as parents to be able to come to terms with the situation and be able to move forward. Then we were sent now to Gertrude's for another therapy. Apart from walking, we now began the therapy for speech, which is still attending speech therapy. It hasn't worked as much, but we still trust God that He's going to talk. So that is what actually opened our eyes to say, okay, Miles is here to stay, and we have now us to adjust, not him to adjust. It is us now to adjust. So we started being serious on his medication, his food, because that was also another thing that was really off. And just being able to see him in different environments. Because one, at first, we were not exposing him. Now we said we have to expose him. So I would go with him to work, and I would let him play at my workplace. And a few of my colleagues now understood what was going on. And 2 of them really loved him naturally. They would actually even call me or video call me and ask me, how is your son? And whenever I went with him to work, they would take him to the kitchen, give him food, come play with him. I would just let him there and play along, and he would love it, okay? So he started adjusting to seeing people. Then when now we began school, now that was now another challenge. We didn't know about special schools.
So you're tarmacking now to look for a good special school for him.
Every time you go to a school and you are going to take your child to nursery school, whether it's special or not, the nursery school teachers will tell you, yes, we will absorb him. Yes, we can. You realize that they don't know. No, they don't have an idea. Like the first one. Yeah. So the first one, we wasted our 2 years in 3 different schools. You go and you actually see that the teacher is overwhelmed because she has no idea what she's dealing with. The boy cannot do what others are doing, and she's now trying to force, and she realized that this boy is mute. So how does he communicate? The boy is just looking at him. But when the boy sees you as the parent, he will wake up, come, and he will start pulling you to go home because he's not comfortable there. The children there also don't understand how to relate with him. So they are trying to play with him. Is not getting the kind of game they're trying to play with. So it becomes a whole problem. So one time I sat down with one teacher who was she was good in teaching. She had worked in international schools and she had begun her own teaching practice, and she was running a nice school. But I told her, I think I need to move my son. But I need you to do me a favor. Help me do homework to be able to get a good special school. So we started. It was like a maze. You go this way, everyone gives you very different information. So we said, okay, why don't we go the government way? So when we went the government way, the first thing was assessment. When we went for the assessment, we were given an appointment at 8:30. But logically, whenever I'm given an appointment, I always go there early. And that was a government facility. So I was there by 7. Trust you me, I found more than 10 other special cases waiting. And I was to be there by 8:50. And this lady who was doing the assessment was taking her sweet time. So we sat there up to about 2 p.m. And remember, some did not carry food for their kids. And these are specialized kids. So you can imagine when one is hungry. And that place is very far from where you can be able to get the child kid. Luckily for me, I thank God I had a car, so I was able to carry food. I always carry him food whenever I'm with him. So we sat there, he was assessed, and they recommended a few schools for us to go. So we went, looked at these schools. Some were good, some were not good, but also the process of getting them into the school also became so convoluted until at one time we just took him back to a special school, a special private school. Now this special private school was doing very well until they changed one of the administrators, and that's why we not say the name. I would have loved to say the name, but no, until they changed one of the administrators. So this administrator was really not for the special kids. So one day he called me for a meeting and he was so harsh. So I asked him, sir, do you know what a parent who has a special kid goes through? Do you know what I go through as a parent to have this boy and even to bring him here to school every day? Do you know that this boy, his medication is up to 18,000 every month?
And what did he say to you at that point?
He kept quiet. Do you know what I feel as a parent to have a special? Do you think I went on my knees and asked God for a special kid? Yeah, so we later on just was not very good to the parents, and so he let go. The teacher was very good, and most of us had to remove our kids from that school, and that's how my son ended up at Waidaka Special School, which is doing very well in terms of whatever they are trying to offer. The head teacher there is very supportive, and we really thank God for her.
Mm-hmm. So with all these hits and misses on some of the sectors, and some of them being public institutions, what is it that you have noticed that the government has missed here and there?
Now, number one, before I go to the government, I will go to the society. It is our wish that we have everything perfect, but sometimes things don't go that way. So my advice to the society is, whenever they see someone with a special child or with a special need, instead of branding him or her, they need to embrace them. Autism is here to stay with us. Other countries have accepted it, and they're working on being able to make it better for them. So do we need to. In terms of our government, I would give you one homework. Just go on Tomboya Street and look at pedestrian and where the vehicles are. You realize that there is nowhere someone can be driven by a bike or you can walk with a special kid, because the pedestrian is full of people selling wares. I have no problem with hawkers, but we need a place where people with special needs can actually walk. Now, the government is doing a good job through the National Council for People Living with Disabilities, but we believe more can be done in terms of awareness. We believe they can also be able to help us as parents who have kids with special needs, because I know they're already dealing with the people with disability, but we parents and caregivers and caretakers of persons with disabilities have been left out, and that is a very big gap. Even if you go to represent a child, they will still expect you to come with the child, while the facility there may not be conducive. Right now, if I have to register my son for NHIF, I have to take him to the Huduma Center. Huduma Center has not been done in such a way that they are conducive to people with that kind of challenge. So we are asking the government to support us. Over and above that, we as parents with children with disabilities, we have come up as 3 families who are now talking about this issue, and we are coming out clearly to be able to talk about it, and we are only seeking for support from the public, and we have formed up a support group for ourselves. So anyone who feels like he can be able to support us and work with us through this route, in terms of any way, in terms of training, in terms of finances, in terms of any way, you can easily get in touch with us, and we'll be so glad to have your support in terms of being able to create awareness.
Maybe you could give guys out there your advice to parents who are, maybe they think they're having a hard time in catering for their children or relatives who are dealing with disability conditions, and also at the same breath do tell people where they can get to reach you so that they can get to join the support group. Yeah.
Thank you so much. As for the parents who are dealing with children with disability, my advice to you is do not give up. We have nowhere to take these kids. They are ours to stay. It's us to man up to the situation and to the occasion and be able to give them a good life. You may not have a good life, but yes, whatever it is that you can be able to offer for your kid, do it. Secondly, do not be afraid to ask for support. There are some places you will be rejected, but some places you will be accepted. So call for support whenever you want, and whenever you are down, please seek help. Also, if in the area you are living in, you can be able to form a support group, that will be fine. But for those who would be willing to reach me, my name is Duncan Owiti. My number is 0723 10 30 50. You can reach me on that number, and then we can now have a bigger discussion on the same. The support group is up and running. We are also being supported by Autism Society of Kenya, and they are very much backing our work with this situation. And you are welcome. If you're having a child with autism, let us sit together, let us chat a way forward for our kids, and let's make Kenya a better place for children with autism.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Owiti, for coming through and for sharing your story with us. It's not so many dads who can be, the pillars of their families and say that even though my child is going through this condition that they have, that I will be there for my family. Not so many men can come out and do that. And for you to do that for your son, I have to say it, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And just before you wind up, I will talk to us as men. Yeah. If you have a special child, please help your wife take care of that child, because most of the time we've been running away, and most of the places I go, I only meet mothers with their children with special cases. Like in the support group, we are only 2 men. So men, let us man up, let us rise to the occasion. And imagine if your child is special and is 18 years, you don't expect your wife to give him a shower. You as a man, you need to give him a shower. So men, let us stand up and